just to give you a bit of a background, I work with the Field Monument Advisor Programme here in County Clare, and we do a lot of work with the Burn Programme, which is a farming scheme here, but it's now actually going to be acres. So just to give you an idea, the FMA has been running for 19 years in County Clare, and the last 12 years it was focused working with the Burn Programme, right? And mainly a lot of our work then was based in the Burn area. So the Field Monument Advisor is about enhancing the preservation of archaeological monuments through awareness. So that's about bringing information to field landowners and the farmers about their archaeological monuments, and it's about preserving them through information. So we do a lot of engagement with the farming community through the Burn Programme, and now which will now be acres. And just to highlight that we find the significance of the landowners or the custodians of our monuments. So they really are our caretakers for our archaeological monuments. So just, probably know that the Burn Programme is winding down, and it's now going to be the Agri-Environmental Scheme under Acres Burn Arran Cooperation Project, which works with farmers in managing and conserving their ecology, archaeological, geological and cultural heritage in the Burn Arran Islands in South Galway. So we're going to be engaging with them. So I'll be working with the farmers and about their archaeology. So any work that happens on their farms that involves any archaeological monuments, I'll be going out and we'll be getting our permissions to the National Monument Service. So that's kind of how it works. So I engage with them to do with just the archaeology. So if there's any farmers doing any work like repair works or putting in tracks in high dense archaeological areas, we would go in and assess, and then we assess then with getting permissions to do the work to the National Monument Service. Also another bit of work that we do as well on the side, we do it through the Field Monument Advisors. We do also provide some farmers with a detailed survey of the archaeology on their farm, and that's just for the farmers. Now we don't get to do many of those, we'd love to do everybody, but we do about 3 or 4 of those every year. So one which led me to this area in the townland of Lismore, this is just the location of the excavations that I've done. So you can see we're not too far from Kilfenora, just to the south, northeast. And if anybody knows Newellville Church, we're just south of there. So this is the general location, okay, where we've done the excavations. But what led me here was to do this farm survey for one of the landowners, John Hines. So you can see we had this bit of land that he has mapped out, and I just concentrated on the archaeology within his boundary, and gave him a detailed survey of what he had. Now he has a lot of stuff. He's part of a very huge field system as well, and when he asks what's a field system, it's where there's old mound walls from older fields that possibly go back into the medieval period and possibly go back as far as the Bronze Age. So John's farm is kind of smack in the middle of one of those, and this field system, you can just see here, that's the number of it. It actually incorporates a lot of other townlands, like Ballyganner North. So it's a massive one. It's a very big one. So just to say, the field system, just a lot of them, you can just see this area here on his farm. You can see all these snaky mound walls and stuff. So these are the older field systems, like John's fields now. The modern boundary that he has is an upstanding wall, but these are all the older ones on his farm. So just to show you the density of the amount of archaeology that this one farm has. And I went out and did his survey, and since I've completed it, John has found loads of other sites. So I can't walk every bit of it, but he's found a lot more. So once he got the report, I sent to John, this is just a report from what I found. You will find more, and you can add to it, because I can't keep going back, but we have found an awful lot more. So anyway, the first day I went out, I met with John, and I kind of had a bit of an idea of what he had. You can see the range of monuments he has in this small area. He has cairns, his prehistoric walls, his field system, his enclosures, his castles, his hut sites, his structures, goat crows, and he's even a ruined farmhouse. So I do also include any ruined farmhouses, even goat crows. I know that they're not archaeological in the sense that they're not very old, but they're still part of the heritage of his farm. And the continued use on this farm is as a farm, basically, going back a couple of thousand years. So to me, I think that it's really important to just record any features that relate to any period of our time, even if it is 100 years old. It's still just as important because it relates to John's farm. This farm goes back a couple of generations. So it is, I just include them. I think they're important. And once the farmers are made aware of them, most of the farmers I deal with, no problem. And actually, in fact, they're telling me where the stuff is. It's not me telling them. They tell me first. And then if I find anything extra, I add to it, So, so just to give you an idea, and then I want to just give you an idea of John's. Even though I'm just focusing on John's, he has 4 cashels. So if you all know, it's a stone ring fort, basically. John actually has 4 of them on his land. And then you can see, I do just look around the outside as well, and you can see all the other cashels that are in this area. He has his moher, which is a named cashel, and as you can see, it's 3 other cashels on his, and then we have a load of other cashels. So you are looking at a kind of a landscape that is used in the medieval period, and if not earlier, but we'll see. Now, I just wanted to give you an idea. When I first met with John has done a lot of work on his farm, fantastic work of scrub clearing, because that's a big issue, but I won't go into it today. But what we would do is he wanted to clear a lot of scrub from this area. We would try and find access with machinery if we can, as long as the machine doesn't do any damage to any of those mound or field walls. And so he's done a lot of work in this area. He wanted to work down on this area. So he brought me in on my first day. It was actually the first day of the job. And we went into this part of his field. He wanted to go down here, an area I may not have gone into myself. He wanted to clear scrub from here, but given the landscape, I was kind of like, I don't think we're going to get a machine to track in here anyway. But what happened was we were down here and we found this beautiful little circular kind of bank, a little tiny thing. It was unrecorded. Now there's an awful lot, they're all red dots, but there's a lot of stuff unrecorded on John's farm as well. But this one was unrecorded, and this is what it looks like. So you can see it here. It's like a little circle, a bank. It's a mound. Well, it's a mound. It's a circular mound with kind of a flat area in the middle. But underneath that mound is most likely to be a stone wall. So, and that's what it just looks like. That was actually the first time I found it. And it was like, oh, look, this beautiful kind of in the corner, nice small hut site is what we would record them as. We're not really too sure what they are. Really, we can't say for certain it's a hut site until you actually excavate it. And John, being very kind, as a few days into the survey, I was thinking it might be really nice to excavate one of these. And why not? It's always about letting the landowner giving us permission too. That's very important, and that they're very happy to have us come out on an archaeological dig. So I thought that it might be nice to run a community excavation, because we do a lot of work with the Burnville Trust conservation volunteers as well. It might be nice to do an excavation and see. And I just thought John's area is lovely. There's not much excavation has been done in it, and I wanted something a little bit easy, but it wasn't too complex. I'd only gotten my license, to run a dig, so I didn't want to have anything too hard. John complied and was delighted to have us there. So I did record the monument before we went out to the National Monuments, and then I applied for Royal Irish Academy, and they're very good to give me funding to run the excavation, because you could run the excavation itself pretty inexpensive. The problem is all the material afterwards that gets found, like getting your radiocarbon dates and stuff, and getting stuff sent to specialists. And I didn't know I was going to find here. So you really do need to have somebody supporting that's happy to financially spend whatever money afterwards. So anyway, minusing that, they agreed anyway to give me finance, and we were able to go out and do a bit of an excavation. So this is what we dug. So you can see we didn't excavate these areas. We just excavated a trench through the centre. The trench measured 10 metres by 4, right? The aim of it was to find out what the structure was, and what was under the mound, to find the walls, and to try and find out what the activity and what date they were. Not a clue, it could be any date. So that's it there, just to show you. We started excavating just lovely aerials, obsessed with the drones, but we get some great photos. So you can see this part, the east and the west, was on excavated. We just gone right through the centre of the site. And this is as we were taking down the layers, take off the sods, take off the grass, and then we slowly meticulously excavate down. So we had numerous volunteers for the 3 weeks of the excavation that were just fantastic. And we took a nice steady excavation. So you can see we did find the wall on this side, kind of the sort of southeast side, right? And it was about 90 centimetres wide, but it was just a dry stone wall, like burn walls are, they're dry stone. It wasn't very high, it was only about half a metre off the ground, and it comprised the outside of large stones, just sitting on the natural ground with smaller stones on the inside. So it was fab. This side was fab. The other side, not so fab. It had completely collapsed, and there was no way of telling exactly where the structure was. It was difficult. It's there, but we're talking about just stones on the ground. It was really hard. The large stones that we had assumed were the outside ones looks like they collapsed and fallen over. That just happens over time. But what we did find on the inside, we did find this lovely, see this lovely dark soil. We did get a layer of archaeological soil. And anyone who digs in the burn, you can see you don't have to go very deep to find the natural ground. So getting archaeological context and depths for archaeologists, it's not the best place to dig, but it still will reveal some of the most interesting archaeology. So we excavated out this layer on the inside, and also just to let you know, we saved everything. Everything got saved. And this is just what it looks like. You can see, you can see this kind of dark soil on the inside. I had hoped we might find fireplace, maybe a post hole if it was a house site. We didn't find anything like that. But doesn't mean that there wasn't one. It just might mean that they didn't need to have an internal post if it was a house. So this is what we're just trying to find out, as much information as we can. So as we excavated out that layer, and then we just come down then onto this kind of gravelly, natural, eroding limestone, and that's what the feature looked like after the excavation. I did decide not to excavate out the mounds and the walls. The outside, I just thought we did do a little sondage through it to see if we could get anything for dating underneath. We didn't get anything that was dateable. We did get 1 or 2 animal bones, but it's hard to know if they were really underneath the wall. The charcoal that I got from the site wasn't very dateable either. We did get 1 or 2 fragments, but nothing that I could actually date the mound. But I did get material from that inside layer to date, which was brilliant. So I just wanted to highlight the team of people we had for the 3 weeks, comprised of the burn conservation volunteers. They were just fantastic. We had 1 or 2 people who'd actually excavated with us before, so it was brilliant. So we did save everything. It was very manageable to save everything from this site. I did a little bit of drone flying, so I did training as part of it. So it wasn't just, that everyone kind of got to go to. Anyone who wanted to learn to fly the drone, I teach them. We did a lot of site recording, so a lot of volunteers could experience. It's great to do the digging part. It's the paperwork that's the most important part, because that's your documentation on the dig. That's what I need for afterwards to write up a report to interpret what we found. So they got to do a good bit of that. And then what did we find? So the artifacts that we found, chair pieces. I don't know are they tools yet, but these are going to be now very interesting from the excavation I did this year. And we found for a couple of quartz pieces. Now, just to give you an idea, as I said to the landscape and limestone landscape we're in, right? Eroding limestone all the time. Anything that isn't limestone, we're to keep it. Any stones that look unusual are not naturally there. Sometimes the chert can be naturally there, more kind of clear chert. And any really nice pieces, they're not there on the side within the limestone. The quartz being the same as well, these kind of quartz pieces. We weren't finding lots of these, we just found a few. So I said to Les to keep everything. We got shale flakes. These are just broken off of some sort of shale implement, because the shale is not natural to this area at all. So that means that they've brought the shale from somewhere else and brought it to the site, and these are flakes that they've probably broken off of like a whetstone or something. We've also got sandstone, lovely sandstone, rounded pebbles that are, again, not natural to the area, so they've been brought in by somebody and left on our site. So then some of the actual artifacts, whetstones. We got these lovely 4 fragments of whetstones. 3 of them are shale and 1 is a sandstone one. And whetstones, or home stones, what we call them, are used for sharpening tools. So we have implements of some sort, that you can either for sharpening knives and stuff, things like that. The other tiny things that we started to get, so this is really specific. We found this bronze piece, just a little tiny piece of bronze, and then we found this guy, which was very interesting. This was the only tiny little pebble that we thought was a stone at the time, but it was a little too heavy. So I was saying to Laz, no, it's definitely something metal. But what this one, bronze piece, we got from XRF tested by the National Monuments, because it was actually a question mark as to whether this was silver or not. So it was a bit exciting at one point. But it is not silver. It's actually high tin bronze, which is even maybe a little bit more exciting than silver, because now we have to understand exactly what that was and what it came from. So it's to do with complex casting, and when it's polished, it looks like silver. So it's not silver, but looks like silver. So it's the, I suppose, the pound shop version maybe of silver. But what it is it's a tiny bead-shaped droplet, and what happens is when they're casting into their molds, the little bits that fall off the top, that's what that is. And I mean, it was a brilliant time to get the most information from one of the tiniest pieces. And so this is why I said it was really important to keep everything, because at least if you keep it, you can throw it away later, but you can't get it back. And in fairness to the volunteers, she was like, oh, I nearly threw it away. I was like, don't worry, we nearly all throw it away, but you second guessed yourself, So, and then this piece, just a little bronze piece, which the specialist has told me is to do with repair works. So whoever owned these kind of tools, that they were able to repair their own bronze something off of something bronze, but that was the only bits of bronze that we got on the site. Then to the iron artifacts, 2 knives, possibly off of a ring pin, but this isn't a ring from a ring pin, that's probably the pin, maybe a ring pin, or a possible hook. Don't know what this guy is, some sort of tool of some sort, and this lovely piece of ring. They've been to the specialist. She can't tell me huge about them, but they're everyday items, so lovely. Everyday pieces. So that's great. Look at the ordinary anyway. I wanted to find out what these sites were. I didn't go to a king's, site. I went to something trying to find where everybody else was living, maybe from whatever period, So again, those lovely iron pieces. Then we found this guy, this lovely blue toggly bead. You can see super tiny, very, very tiny. So it's glass. We're not too sure. It's not too specialist now to wait here. There may have been another blue bit at the end, or it's possibly mounted into a piece of jewellery. We're not too sure yet, but you can see how tiny. We had kids out digging with us, and they found that in the sieve. So it just goes to show how important the sieving is, because no matter how good you are digging, you wouldn't spot things like that. It's so tiny. I thought I had a closer up of it, but no, it's so tiny. So it's gone off to a specialist, and I don't know any more about it. There's potential it might be a first, that there is no other examples, which would be wonderful, but also it doesn't really tell us exactly what it is, but she needs a bit of time to look at it, and she might be able to tell me more about it. And then we found this piece of bone, tiny and really thin, and it possibly was a pin or something, and it's possibly made of antler. But again, it's gone to the animal bone specialists, so they want to look at it first, and then I need to find someone else to look at it to tell me what they think it is. And then we found 2 perforated pieces of bone, and again with the animal bone specialist, the bone is going to tell me what bones they are. But you can see there's a hole here in this one. That one doesn't go the whole way through, but this one goes the whole way through. So I don't know what these are yet. I know we've been a year now, it's a year since the dig, but I'm trying to find out, and everything goes to a specialist. So we just have to wait, because a lot of specialists are very busy these days. The other things we got lots of burnt and unburnt animal bone from the site. We also got heat-shattered stones, which tell us that there was a fireplace somewhere, not necessarily inside, could have been outside, that they were definitely heating the stones, and they've broken, so they could have been lying around the side of the fireplace. And you can see there's sandstone, so it's not limestone we're looking at. Now we did get some charcoal, but very little charcoal. But I did get enough that I could date. So I have 1 radiocarbon date, so part of the site. My radiocarbon date is 600 to 650 AD, so it's 7th century. So we're looking at the early medieval period, but that's only for the layer on the inside. Now I do need to get more radiocarbon dates done, possibly at the animal bone, just to have a look, because as much as I found some lovely stuff on the site and answered some questions, but I also created more questions. And I didn't really get a definitive thing for, was the actual enclosure part of the activity on the inside, was the inside later? Could have been an earlier site and later used. What periods are we dealing with? So I'm still working on that, but it's still lovely to get a date, because I could have found that the site was only 100 years old, but that still would have been information anyway. But to get a 7th century date was really nice, and it's an early date. So just to kind of give you an idea, like if Carrickmon and Carrickconnell, the building of the walls are around 9th to 10th century, but there's activity there before that. That's what we're looking at. It looks like it's before the Cashel Bills, in relation to the ones that we know have been excavated, of course, but we do know ring forts do go back. Ring forts themselves do date to the 7th, 8th, 9th century. So anyway, so just to move on, are we okay for time?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 304 recorded hut sites in the Burren, in Clare. Again, we don't really know what they are. I still don't know what they are, even from my excavation, 100% to say. Were they just an enclosure that contained some sort of activity? Were they houses? What were they? Are they all medieval? You know, we've only dug one, can't say the other ones are medieval yet. So what do we do? As archaeologists, we go and find another one. So that's the one we excavated. And in the farm next door, we have in this area here, in a different farmer's land, we have two. Brilliant, I'm winding down anyway. So we have two little ones, right? One recorded and one unrecorded. Oops. Oh, I found, avert your eyes to the artifacts. Sorry. So we have two. All right, it's very similar to the one I excavated in John. So there's one here and one here. This one a little bit larger, okay? My other one was about 8 meters in diameter. This is 14 meters in diameter, so bigger. Then this one, which was unrecorded, and we got recorded, was the same size as the other one I dug. So I was thinking, oh, two the same, and then we have one that's different. So are these, hopefully, we'll have a comparison, which we think you will, but you never know. You have a comparison, and then this one being a little bit different, because that one had different activity on the inside. So this is my intention. Excavate these two, find out, are they contemporary what I currently have, hopefully. So just to let you know though, when you go looking for something, you won't find it, it finds you. These are the two trenches we opened. So just to give you an idea, we were just finished, by the way, yesterday. I'm just showing you some of the photos I have. I haven't got a handle on it myself yet. So these are the two trenches we dug. That's the smaller one. It's only about 10 meters by 3, and then we dug the whole way through the bigger one. And it was about 18 meters by 3. Okay, so just to give you an idea, this is trench 1. So this is through the big one, and you can see the area we haven't dug. So I haven't dug them. We left this for the mound. We went through this one. There was a kind of an interesting mound on the inside. Firstly, initially I had my trench running that big. I decided to change it based on Michelle Comer's suggestion. And we actually decided to change it this way because we wanted to catch. The mound looks really good. I wanted to get the best parts of the mound, you see. And the highest parts are this way. But because of winding a little bit more to get more information, we decided to change it this way. And we had this kind of interesting upright stone as well, so we wanted to find more information like that. But I won't go into it. Now, so this is the trench from trench 1. Now, this took up, there was a lot to take from here. So you can see we took up to the mound, the wall. Not really a wall, it's just a loose kind of structure. I didn't find anything as well as the structure I had on the first one. They were just kind of loose, but you could definitely say they were 1.4 meters wide, so much wider. This one was much wider. It had some very large stones on top of very small stones underneath. So it was not like you could step on it, probably collapse it easily enough. But again, much wider, about 1.5. So we're looking at paper kind of things. What did we find on the inside? So we had a lovely kind of display feature, but did find burials. Now, it's just very early days. I don't know how old the burials are. We did remove this burial. It was a crouched burial. There's another burial which has actually been left in situ. We don't have the time to dig it. And we have the potential for another burial here. We don't know for sure. Because as you can see, we have this is what this looks like. But except this one had a higher mound. So like a little cairn, a loose mound of stones. We didn't know what was in that. We kind of had a little bit of an assumption. But it could have been a fireplace or a structure of some sort inside, but what we thought was all inside. So there are burials coming from the site. And we've only removed one. With excavation 1, the crouched one here. So just to show you the other site, we thought, okay, burials in here. Is this burial related? We dug out this one, we didn't find any burials in the other one. Okay, so there's no burials. Well, where we dug, there's no burials. Okay, I have to say, we didn't like the whole lot of it. It could be one over there. So that just gives you an idea, and we didn't dig as much of the trench 2. Again, we only had like 3 weeks to dig. So you can just see, we backfilled the site yesterday. So it's really raw. What did we find? And I'll explain why I don't know what we have. This piece of antler, I'm just going to run through this really quick. We've got beads and toggles Beautiful green bead, bone toggle, used for kind of in jewellery, not perforated in this blue one as well. Some beautiful finds, a quartz bead. Oh, sorry, I'll just slow that down now. That's beautiful, you tiny. And again, all found in the sieving, or actually while digging as well. The other thing we found, perforated stone. This is another beautiful piece when it came up 2 days ago. And then the other thing, really interesting, got chert tools, right, and flint tools. So this suggests these are the flint one there, chert pieces, and then we have, and a little arrowhead here, a shade, or chert, arrowhead. So we've obviously what looks like to be Bronze Age activity. And then we have possibly quartz bead, which can date to the 11th century, and these toggles, which can date to the Iron Age into the medieval period. So we have a range of things coming out of this site. So this is what I'm saying to you, I don't know what we're dealing at yet. There's lots of different activities. And then what do we also have? Came up? Iron pieces again, and a softened arrowhead. All right, so that would have gone into the shaft of an arrow. So this beautiful piece here popped up. Early medieval, 13th, I have a site, actually I have a socketed arrowhead to show you today, which dates to the 12th and 13th century. So, I don't know what we have, I'm going to be honest. We could be possibly looking at an earlier site, maybe in the Bronze Age, that was then later used. Right, so there's more than one period of activity on this site. The burial, I don't know, was the burial original to the site, or is it later? Until we get it dated, I can't say for certain what we're looking at. But cherts and the flints tell me we're looking at Bronze Age activity, possibly then with later burials, or those burials are related to Bronze Age. Is it a burial site? Lots of those, the beads and stuff would suggest they're very high-end kind of material. This isn't domestic. My other site would seem to be more domestic, related to that 7th century activity. This stuff is a little bit more rich you can see the beautiful finds that we found. So I'm just not too sure. Crouched burial can date to the Bronze Age. Could be Iron Age. It could also be an unusual early medieval grave. As for the other two burials then as well, one was crouched that we know, we excavated. It looked like the other one was extended. So it's two different. They may not even be the same period of time. They might be two different periods of burials. I really won't know unless we go back and excavate again. So it just gives you an idea as archaeologists go in looking for one thing and I find something completely different. You can understand how busy we were. That's why my voice was gone. I thought it was going to be a holiday for 3 weeks. But it wasn't. It was just fantastic. The volunteers were amazing. And it really was a fantastic dig to be on. So anyway, I'll leave it there if anyone has questions. I'm sure I kind of covered everything, but it's just, again, it's so new to me even. I have to even go back, we have more finds than what I've shown you, but these are really some of the juicy ones. So look, I just have to say huge thanks to the landowners, the McGanns and the Hine family, Burn Bio Trust conservation volunteers who were amazing. I mean, they did all the heavy lifting, the sieving and everything. And then just the Royal Irish Academy for funding the project. And then the FP programme were funded by the National Monument Service. And then I have to thank AMS, which is a company that came out and geophysed our trenches, or they marked in our trenches for us. And then the Acres project as well. So if anyone has any questions, just come to me and I'll try my best to answer them. So a crouched burial is when our individual was on its side and the legs were bent, so almost in a fetal position. So our particular individual, we know, had left hand lying flat, right hand in, the hands were up under the feet and his legs were bent, so he was in kind of a tucked in position. So I will be presenting again on it later, but it's just a bit new. So thanks very much. Thanks for having me.